Blog Talk Radio.
Wake Up to 2012 and Beyond is a weekly 30-minute talk show dedicated to helping you, the spiritual seeker, wake up, remember who you are, and live a fully aware and conscious life. Hosted by Lorna Blake, a spiritual seeker and teacher, this show features guests who inspire and empower you to be your divine, magnificent self and to prepare for the 2012 dimensional shift. You'll get the information, inspiration, and motivation to take your next steps towards spiritual transformation. Get ready for an enlightening experience. Now, here's Lorna Blake.
Greetings, spiritual seekers. I'm Lorna Blake. Welcome to part 2 of our interview with Nancy Detweiler, who is a Bible scholar and former church minister, who is also well known for writing very powerful articles about life and the ascension process on your popular website, pathwaytoascension.com. And I just want to acknowledge that I'm a messenger for this time, and so I broadcast love to you and all of you who are joining us around the globe to share in this time of raising the vibrations on the planet to bring more love, light, and consciousness. And in part 1 of our interview, Nancy shared with us what ascension is, that it is the gaining of full consciousness and having access to all knowledge. She got into an interpretation of 1 Corinthians 13 that I never heard before, and told us that creation is based on mathematics, and that based on all of the timing and prophecies, that we are in fact heading for a time toward the end of this year, a particular date, when something major is expected to happen. So if you missed part 1 of the interview, I encourage you to go back and take a listen so you can be right up to speed. And today's interview is even more intriguing than last week's. But before I tell you what we're covering in today's interview, I want to share news of some events happening to usher in this new time. There is a 2012 Scenario Conference happening in Sedona, Arizona, October 30, 31, and November 1st at Los Abrigados Resort. The theme of the conference is Preparing for Ascension. So if you want to find out more information about tickets and all of that, go to www.the2012scenario, SCENARIO.com. And there is another event that I am excited to share with you. It is called The Moment. The Moment. It is expected to attract people from around the globe. It's a spiritual event. This is expected to bring together people of all religions and races, and to create a holy vibration and a light that will raise the consciousness of the planet. We're all talking about the same thing here. And one of the co-founders, Reverend Host, says a critical mass is needed to create a change in the consciousness of the 7 billion people on the planet. And so this event is expected to help to do that, to raise the vibrations and to create that consciousness to bring about this new heaven on earth. And so that brings me to what we are going to be covering with Nancy today. And in today's event, we are talking about how we have been conditioned by religion through fear of hell. So have you been conditioned through religion not to question what you've been taught for fear of going to hell? Nancy is going to discuss how fear of hell has been used to control religious followers. She's going to also tell us the kind of attitude that we need to adopt to find peace and set ourselves free. She's going to get into something about our celestial blueprint and make some bold statements about reincarnation and past lives. You're going to learn why some men have recently written to Nancy in tears after their self-discovery. Also, you're going to find out what type of astrology you use, how the type of astrology you use can make a difference to your self-empowerment, And Nancy offers us a surprising interpretation of the book of Job. So we're going to pick up where we left off last week. And where we left off last week, Nancy told us that something is expected to happen on or around December 21st, 2012. So let's get right back into that interview. Here we go.
There's just all kinds of evidence that something will happen on December 21st.
And I think, as you say that, if enough of us believe that something is going to happen, then it's, yes, we are.
It will happen in our lives anyway.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So you said that you think it's going to be both gradual and sudden?
Well, I think it is gradual right now. And I think we're going to start seeing things speed up, too.
So the gradual, then, I want to assume that part of the reason that it's important for it to be gradual right now is because our bodies probably need time to adjust to this new dimension. Does that sound reasonable or valid to you then, Nancy? Because what I've been reading and hearing is that moving from this three-dimensional world into the fifth, we are going to, we're going to need more. We're going to need light bodies, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that if it was just all sudden, then I guess it would be damaging to our physical bodies may not be able to stand it.
Yes. And whether or not people are aware that their bodies are being changed, everyone's body is. We're increasing the DNA that we use. You know, we only use a small portion of DNA right now. That's increasing. Right now we use about 10% of our brain power. That's increasing. And people may just not be aware of what's happening, but it is happening. And yes, it takes time to adjust. And it's going to take time for people to realize that, wait a minute, I don't know anything really is what we're going to find out. Our brain power has been so limited that when we have full consciousness, we will realize that we've known nothing.
That is really, really true. I agree with that. So how can we prepare Christians? And I say Christians because, you know, that's the group of religious people that I am most familiar with. But the truth of it is that this may well apply to other people who are involved in other religious practices as well. So, but how do we prepare people who are very religious for the ascension? Where do we start?
I would really encourage people to become more open. I think religion has controlled all of its followers by fear of hell. And a loving God does not create a hell to punish us in. And Jesus taught, the truth will set you free. So just exploring and opening up to new ideas. But the major thing is be as loving as you can possibly be forgiving, forgive yourself, forgive others. Look at the problems or challenges that you've had during your life. Like if a father has mistreated you, have you forgiven him? Have I forgiven myself for allowing myself to be mistreated? Take a good look at yourself and try to release all anger, all wanting of revenge, all unforgiveness. And it's real important to look at yourself. Do I love myself? Because Jesus taught, love others as you love yourself.
I think that is so powerful. And I was taking notes seriously as you were talking here. So one of the things that you talk about in terms of preparing people of, who are staunchly religious for this time is you're encouraging openness, that for a lot of people who are staunchly religious, it's the fear of hell that's dangling over their heads that have kept them feeling imprisoned. And what you're saying is that Jesus has taught that the truth will set us free. And if we open our hearts and our minds, we can begin to experience, have a more loving experience with God, with what we believe. So you also talk about being loving, forgiving ourselves, forgiving others, looking at maybe some of the challenges that we've experienced in our lives. And if we did experience, for example, I overcame sexual abuse from a stepfather. What you're saying is, if there is such a, if you're dealing with some life challenges that you may not have let go, have you forgiven this person? It's really important for us to do a life review and to go through and ask ourselves, where is my pain? What is the pain that I may still be holding on to? And have I forgiven this person? And then the other important key was the piece about loving ourselves. Loving ourselves is so powerful, but for so many people, that's where the struggle is. And I speak to that as somebody who, having dealt with sexual abuse as a child, I came up with no sense of self-love whatsoever. As a matter of fact, I hated myself. Mm-hmm. And it took a long time, and it took a process for me to get to the place of beginning to love myself. And that's one of the things that I've actually been coaching and helping, especially women, to learn to do for themselves, is starting with themselves, to love themselves. So I love that you just mentioned that. So, was there something else?
And one of the things that one reason I got into astrology while I was a rehab counselor is that I found that people know all about their negative qualities. Yes. Very few are conscious of their positive. And we never incarnate with all negative. We incarnate, our guides before we incarnate help us to plan a life. We call it the soul contract. To plan a soul contract, which we have every opportunity to succeed in accomplishing, because we bring in enough positive qualities to help us overcome any negativity that's in the life. That's why I love astrology, and my website has free lessons, esoteric astrology. It's not mundane astrology like you see in the newspaper. But you can read about yourself in those lessons and get to know the positive part of yourself. I've had, just recently, since Stephen's interview, men write. And I qualify men because we don't usually think in terms of them exploring that much. But they have written and said, I am just weeping because I'm reading about myself and I didn't know this. Discovering yourself is one of the most exciting adventures you can go on. But you need to discover the positive, not focus on negative. You already know that.
I agree with you. And what's really powerful about what you're encouraging us to do is that it's the whole idea of starting with the positive. And I agree with you. I mean, I've coached many, many people, and also during my years as a social worker, I met many, many people who would tell me all of the things that were wrong with them. And and immediately I could feel them shrinking, because as they kept talking about the things that were bad about themselves, I could feel, you could say a contraction occurring. And I myself, after hearing them berate themselves, I could feel bad for them as well because, I'm sensitive that way. So it's a really important piece. Now, when you talked about your website that people could go and read about themselves, I think it will be helpful if you could share with us. So how would somebody go to your website, which is pathwaytoascension.com, and read about themselves? Is it something generic? How would that happen, Nancy? Help us understand.
Oh, I tell people how to get a computer printout of their natal chart, which is the position of the stars at the time of their birth. And then I take them through a lot of lessons. First of all, they can, without even having the chart, they can read about their sun sign. Do you know what that is?
No, but that would be helpful to understand. So when you say a printout of the natal chart, what if I don't know what time I was born? Would that
does make a difference, yes.
So
but you can still go and read about your sun sign, whether you're an Aquarius or an Aries. And you can also read, I have a destiny number. Part of numerology, that's just one section of numerology on my chart. On my website. But you can read about the destiny number and read about your sun sign and begin to see how they blend together.
I should check that out.
And numerology you do with your name and your birth date so that you don't have to have a time. If people don't have a time, they can. I don't have numerology on my website because I'm not proficient in that. But if they wanted to write me, I have a woman that I can recommend that can do numerology.
That's wonderful. Over the years, I myself have had several numerology readings, and I have to say that I have benefited tremendously. It really empowered me in a lot of ways. I haven't done a lot of astrological readings or natal chart readings, interestingly enough. So I'm going to actually go check out your website to find out what it says about my sun sign. And you're saying I wouldn't need to have my time of birth in order to find out what my sun sign is. Is that correct?
Your birth date is your sun sign.
Oh, my birth date.
Yes.
I see. Okay.
You don't have to have your birth time to know whether you're Aquarius or Aries or whatever.
Right.
But you do have to have the time to read the rest of the chart.
So even if I knew, my birth date is November 18. So that being said, what I know I'm in the regular astrological charts, I'm a Scorpio. So my sun sign is Scorpio? Okay, I get you now.
Now you could read, if you don't have the time, you can read what Scorpio, the characteristics of a Scorpio sun sign. And you can read your destiny number and begin to see yourself. But one famous astrologer, Dan Rudger, calls the natal chart your celestial name because all of the universe knows who you are. You're very unique. You have a role to play in the divine plan that no other human being can play. And that's what your esoteric astrological natal chart will show. You're not just a replica of someone else. You're not an accident. I don't care how you were conceived and born. It was not an accident. But because we haven't known about reincarnation, we've had to explain life in other terms, which has greatly limited our concept of who we are. It deprives us of so much.
Yes, indeed. And so, Nancy, this is really powerful. So I wonder if you could give us an example, maybe from your personal life or from a client, for example. So what I'm looking for is this natal chart or this, it gives you say, it's a celestial blueprint of who we are. what is one thing that you could probably say that would, maybe you would glean this information from the chart? And then you also talk about reincarnation. So would it tell us, would the natal chart tell us the previous lifetimes and all that?
Esoteric astrology. When I did the interpretation of the natal chart, I called them the soul map, because it was a map of your soul's plan for this lifetime. And you can see, you don't exactly see where the lifetime was, but you can see the lessons that you wanted to learn, or the tendencies that you developed in past lifetimes that you're wanting to either accent and use, or you're wanting to overcome and convert into a positive. Every quality will change into a positive. But yes, astrology is based on reincarnation.
I didn't know that.
And bringing in what the soul map is showing is the influences that you have brought in from past lives.
That's fascinating.
And you're going to use them or overcome some of the tendencies.
So is that true for all astrology? So you're saying all astrology is based on reincarnation?
Only the spiritual astrology.
I see. So
we'll show you that.
Or spiritual astrology is based on reincarnation.
The other has to be, but they don't focus on that. The mundane, I call it the mundane astrology, is talking about just this life. It's actually very third dimensional, I think. But when you move into the esoteric astrology, and you have to get books that are esoteric astrology.
But what you're saying is that on your website is a good starting point for people who have no knowledge of esoteric or no exposure to esoteric or spiritual astrology. A great starting point would be your website.
Right. There's also lessons. I've got 2 metaphysical lessons on there that help you look at your life and begin to see what you're needing to overcome. It helps you look inside yourself. I would say use those to get to know yourself too.
Fantastic. All right. So I'm going to encourage listeners to take a look at pathway or pathways?
Pathway to Ascension.
Pathwaytoascension.com and have a look at the esoteric astrology section. So when they go on to the homepage, is there a tab that they would need to look at in order to find it?
Right up in the top right corner, you'll see free esoteric astrology lessons.
Perfect. So right at the top, it says free esoteric astrology lessons. So I'm going to encourage people to take advantage of that, because it's a wonderful way for us to get to know ourselves better. And as Nancy has encouraged us to do, to begin to love ourselves and to appreciate our positive qualities, because so many of us have come to this lifetime thinking that, this is all I have, and I'm a nothing, and I'm a worm, and I'm a nobody, because religion very often does that to us. It makes us feel, right, that we're nothing.
Another thing that they can do, the book of Job has been used a lot in religion. The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. I've heard a lot of people say God can do anything God wants to do. Well,
so they feel that they have no control. Absolutely. The story of Job. Yes.
And when you interpret Job metaphysically, what you find is that it's the pathway to enlightenment.
Interesting.
You travel with Job through his journey to enlightenment or ascension. He ascends into full knowledge, and at the end he says, I had only heard of you, God, but now I see you face to face. That's ascension.
That
the
is
Bible
fascinating.
is full of the truth, but we don't know it.
No, I have to agree with you, but it's fascinating to me because, as you say, the book of Job has been used many, many times over. for people to feel like they have, bad things happen to good people. And I mean, that's a big part of it, right? It's about bad things happening to good people and we're not in control. And so there is this feeling of powerlessness. And what you are bringing to our consciousness is that when this book of Job is interpreted metaphysically, it's a pathway to enlightenment. Or ascension. Wow. That is amazing to me. So,
now, let me make this plain too. In order to interpret the Bible metaphysically, you have to know metaphysics. So, it's difficult for a person who's never studied metaphysics to look at the Bible and see what I'm seeing.
Yes.
But if you read, like the book of Job, if it were not true, it would not fit. And you see how it fits. And you have to read and learn with your heart and not your intellect. The intellect is our lower mind, and it can actually keep us from learning truth. Because it's dependent on the five senses. And if we learn to listen with our heart, to listen to our intuitive insight, then we can learn a much greater truth. And that's truth that will not change.
That's powerful. I love what you said there. You said you have to start feeling and loving with your heart and not your intellect. Because our intellect can really keep us in our lower mind. And
it really does.
Right. And what we're seeking to do is to ascend, is to expand. It's to move to a greater level of enlightenment and awareness.
And what we don't realize is that we have that already. We are magnificent beings, but we don't know it.
Oh, I love what you just said there. So we are magnificent beings, but we don't know it. You just heard that from Nancy. And I just want to reiterate that. We are magnificent beings, but we don't know it. The reason is the powers that be have used religion to brainwash us into believing that we are worms, that we are nothing and nobody. Why? Because if we recognized who we truly were, then they wouldn't have been able to have power over us and enslave us. We would have risen up and taken back our power and lived and embodied the Christ consciousness so we could experience heaven on earth. Well, that time has come. It's time to recognize that you are, in fact, a magnificent being. Now, today, this is all the time we're going to have for speaking, but hey, we've got more time next week when we're going to go even deeper with Nancy, and she will share with us how our beliefs that we are sinners and that we're going to hell is a form of religious enslavement. What is the true meaning of the kingdom of God is within you? You're going to have to tune in next week to hear what Nancy says about that and how we can break from the chains of religious enslavement. We're just getting started, and so you can't afford to miss next week's show. Tune in and find out more. I just want to thank you for tuning in. Thank Nancy for, sharing her wonderful words of wisdom with us. Also, thank you to Ryan Takera for radio production. And I just want to bless you and thank you once again for joining us. Tune in again next week, and we'll talk to you some more. Many blessings. Have a great day where you are. Bye for now.